Welcome to Coaching Voices podcast, where my goal is to help you gain deeper insights into professional coaching. Here, we bring diverse perspectives and expert insights from the world of coaching by engaging in conversation with seasoned coaches and industry experts. I'm Pravin Sharma, a coach and consultant. Welcome and thank you for joining. And today, I'll be talking to Dr. Tracy Wallach. Dr. Tracy is a distinguished coach with expertise in leadership development. She's a graduate of Georgetown University's Leadership Coaching Program and a registered analytic network coach. Her specialization lies in systems, psychodynamic, and adaptive leadership approaches, where she focuses on understanding the underlying dynamics within organizations and helping leaders adapt to complex, changing environments. Dr. Tracy's approach integrates psychological insights with practical leadership strategies, aiming to foster both personal growth and organizational effectiveness. It's my honor to welcome Dr. Tracy to our Coaching Voices podcast. Hello, Dr. Tracy. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Pravin, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it, actually. Yeah, that's how. Okay. What can you tell us about yourself?
Oh, that's a very broad question. Okay. So I am a leadership coach, consultant, teacher, trainer. I started off my career as a clinician, as a clinical social worker, over 40 years ago now. And I've made a number of career changes over the years. You know, my first change was moving from doing kind of individual and group psychotherapy work to wanting to work with larger systems and organizations, and then getting further training and certification in organizational development. Then I moved into, and I did both for a while. I practiced both psychotherapy and organizational consultation. And then I moved into teaching, which kind of, for me, brought everything together. I was invited by a colleague in the early 2000s to help her teach a course in group relations, and I fell in love with teaching at that time, and I started teaching classes in organizational behavior and leadership, and decided to get my Ph.D. at that point.
How did you get into coaching?
Well, on some level, it's always been part of what I do, whether, you know, as a psychotherapist, whether as a consultant, whether as a teacher. Coaching has been definitely part of what I do. So it's hard for me to say, you know, in this year at this time, I became a coach, because it's always been part of the larger picture of how I practice, how I work.
Lots of people describe coaching as in a different way, a different form, right? So what exactly coaching is for you? Because the description from ICF is different than it might been different than what others are perceiving, right? So when I talk to somebody, they're like, oh, I'm a coach. And basically what he does is like he's providing some level of mentorship there, right? Sometimes being a consultant, people say that, well, I'm a coach, you know. So just want to have that kind of clarity on how do you perceive coaching in your practice?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that ICF differentiates between coaching and consulting and therapy. So, you know, where, you know, ICF might look at therapy as looking at, you know, focusing on the past and healing from the past, versus consulting, you know, being more about advice giving, versus coaching, which is more kind of future oriented and kind of helping the individual find their own inner wisdom in all of that. But in the end, and this may be a little controversial to say, in the end, I think that a lot of it depends on how you were trained and where you were trained. Because there are a lot of coaches who have very deep psychological training, and there are, coaches that have more deep business development training or consulting backgrounds. So I think so much depends not only on kind of the formal credentials that you've received, but also the experiences that you've had beyond kind of your bachelor's or doctor's or master's degrees.
Thanks for that clarification, Dr. Tracy. If I may ask you, as we talk about system, how does system thinking work in larger organizations?
Yeah, and I have a particular way of thinking about and understanding systems as well, which so I think in thinking systemically is about understanding how the different parts of the system impact each other. And understanding that if you do one thing in one part of the system, understanding that that may have an impact or probably will have an impact in another part of the system. And that everything is connected on some level. So there's a tool that I like to use that comes from the field in which, I've been trained in. It's called group relations or systems psychodynamics. It's about looking at kind of the unconscious process or the irrational processes that often happen in groups and systems. And it's about looking at so this tool, it's called BART. It stands for Boundaries, Authority, Role, and Task. I think of it is something I often teach my students, my clients, share with them as a kind of simple way to begin to think about the groups you're in and the organizations you're in as systems. Like thinking about, let's say you're working in a team. What is our primary task as a team? Why are we here? Why do we exist? In other words, what is our mission together?
Right.
And role is the part one plays in the overall task or mission. Authority speaks to how am I authorized to do my part, to play my role? Mm-hmm. And how do I authorize others in their roles? And finally, what are the boundaries around those roles, around our mission? And when groups do not fully explore or talk about the ways that task, role, authority, and boundaries are aligned or misaligned with each other, or places where people in the team may agree or disagree with each other, then groups can get into trouble. And there's a lot of conflict, trouble, irrational process. They may start to behave in ways that don't make a lot of sense because everybody's operating under their own ideas about what's going on. And if you can get people to talk about it or think about it together, then they can at least deal with some of the structural issues that may be happening within a system that may be interfering with their productivity or getting things done.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you have this emerging leadership program that you have. You mentioned about the class that you run as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that program, please?
Sure. It's a new program. I'm hoping to launch June 30th, but it's possible I may postpone it.
Okay.
And it's essentially a small group coaching program, and it's for people who are uh, either newly promoted as leaders
Okay.
or in a position to influence other people, or aspiring leaders, or potentially also more experienced leaders who want to have more of a theoretical framework to
Mm-hmm,
try to
mm-hmm.
understand who they are as leaders and how they want to operate as leaders. So, So it's a 6-month coaching program, small
Okay.
group coaching. So there'll be 4 to 6 people in the group. And beyond that, people will also have access to a course that I've created that will teach people some kind of basic ideas around systems thinking
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
from a systems psychodynamic perspective.
This sounds really interesting. Is it any particular qualification that are required for someone to come enroll in your program?
You have to talk to me first.
Okay.
I am the
We're talking.
gatekeeper to the, yes, I'm the gatekeeper to the program. So,
Okay.
if you are kind of in a position of leadership, potentially going to be in a position of leadership, and are in a place where you're ready to kind of learn more about yourself, able to make the commitment to yourself and to the group,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't have to have a particular degree or job title or anything like that. But if you are in some kind of position of leadership, and I define leadership in a more broad way
Mm-hmm.
as someone who is helping a group or an organization face its adaptive challenges.
Okay.
So
S-
you may be CEO, or you may be kind of a line manager or a supervisor or a team member who is actually in a position to influence other members of the team.
One of the main reasons that I want to take some deep dive into your cohort is because this particular program will help those who are thinking to become a leader in their organization. It could be that some kind of like constraint that are not, some kind of constraint that are out there that are pulling them back, or it's something that the organization is not ready to promote them, right? So when they go into your program, what are the benefit that they can get out of it? Or in a way, whether or not this program is for those who are not yet in a leadership position, but potentially after having your program, they could become a leader.
Yes, it can. Each time it will depend on the overall makeup of the group. So I will
Mm-hmm.
try to put groups together that mesh on
Got
some
it.
level.
Got it.
So the program can also kind of work for intact teams potentially, or for different parts of an organization. It can be customized to work with a particular organization or group within an organization.
Thanks for that information. So let's go back to the coaching topic. In a coaching, I've seen people, they face lots of challenges and ultimately they quit because they cannot handle that kind of challenges. You being in coaching industry for more than 40 years or so, you obviously know ins and outs of coaching. You obviously face these kind of challenges on a regular basis, right? So what are the ways that you overcome these challenges?
I'm going to sort of change the subject as a
Sure,
way
sure.
of getting in, as a way of getting into this. I would say I got into, first psychotherapy, the helping professions, because I am interested in working with people
Mm-hmm.
and helping people. I have never been a business person. So that was, is, and probably will continue to be my biggest challenge as a coach is dealing with the business development aspect of it. And I think that's true for many coaches. And that's why we have such a, large variety of business development coaches out there. Yeah, I think that was and is and continues to be my biggest challenge. I much prefer to, sit with somebody in Zoom and, I'm comfortable with nearly anybody that walks into my Zoom room, and I can have a conversation with them. But just dealing with the marketing and the sales part of it, when I can think of it as only having a conversation with somebody, I'm a lot more comfortable with it. I can get over this kind of mindset issue that I have with sales and marketing.
Now, this Zoom is more like a virtual thing. How comfortable you are in person as well?
I'm pretty comfortable in person, but I haven't actually worked a lot in person for the last 4 years. So that's been a lot more periodic. And a lot of my coaching practice is on Zoom.
A lot of people are utilizing Zoom to, advance their coaching practices. And the feedback that I get from a lot of these coaches, because I talk to coaches on a regular basis, and they find it very, in terms of quality and everything, it's there. So, there's certain element that you miss while you're in person versus virtual, right? But obviously, the objective is there. What you are trying to attain is there. What qualities do you think are essential for someone who are considering a career in coaching?
I think the capacity to listen, the capacity for empathy, a desire to help or be of service. I think those are some of the main. You asked about qualities, so I'm thinking in terms of personal qualities. But there are also skills that I think are, those are skills that can also be developed.
Right. A lot of people develop those skills because nobody's born with that kind of skills, right? So you have to work on to develop those skills that are essential for you to be a good coach, I would say. So you talk about empathy, you talk about active listening, and you talked about being there, right? So if I may ask you this, right? If somebody comes to you and is like, Dr. Tracy, I'm thinking about becoming a coach, what sort of advice will fulfill their dream to become a coach?
Well, first I would say why. My first thing to say would be a question. Why? What is it about coaching? What do you imagine it would be like to be a coach? What does that look like to you? And I would actually take some time to explore that and see if in fact coaching is what they're looking for.
I have seen many people did not start their initial career as a coach. I have seen many people who start their career as a coach when they already had another career, right? So they heard from somebody that coaching is something that, you can establish in your life. Of course, the transformative power of coaching will propel lots of people's thought in going into the coaching, no matter what. One of the other things that I've seen people getting into the coaching is because they heard from somewhere that this particular business is very lucrative. What's your thought on it?
Don't do it.
Yep.
It's a
Yep.
really, really bad reason to be a coach. And I think it's not necessarily a good thing for the profession, young as it is, to, well, money's kind of a bad reason to do pretty much anything. I guess some people are motivated by money. It's not something that really works for me in any way, shape, or form. So it's hard for me to even kind of connect to that. Though I'm not against money. I like money. I like having it. I like spending it, but I don't, it doesn't necessarily motivate me to do anything. I think there are probably easier ways to make money than coaching. I think you have to have some kind of desire to work with people or understand people or help them understand themselves in some way to do this.
As we all know that coaching industry is not being regulated, and there are tons of certifications that are out there. What are your thoughts on these certifications? And if you have ever encountered any certifications that's considered as a gold standard?
Well, I'll tell you, 30 years ago, when I was making my first career switch from being a practicing psychotherapist to kind of organizational development consulting and coaching, I looked into the coaching certification. This was in the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. And the ICF was very new and very young at the time. And I kind of looked at it and I said, well, I don't know. I think my clinical training is a lot stronger than what's going on in the coaching field at the moment. So I decided I was not going to go that route. And now, today, the ICF is this kind of powerhouse organization politically, and it's very hard to get coaching work with organizations if you don't have some kind of ICF credential. So I think now it's become much more important than it used to be. But I also think that depending on one's work, education, and life experience, other credentials can also substitute. If one looks closely at what the actual training is and what the actual knowledge is of a particular coach. So, in the absence of that, the, ICF credential, I think, is very important.
It's not easy to get that credential as well. I mean, you really have to work through it. So, yeah. There is a certain level of standard within ICF.
Yes,
yeah,
for sure.
Right, absolutely. So,
and I will say I am actually pursuing that credential now, following my own advice and saying that, yes, it is important. It is useful in today's environment.
That's great. So. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm also pursuing it. Like, I already had ACC, but I'm planning on getting my PCC. So still working on the coaching hours. So it takes a long time to get there. So if I may ask you this, what strategies do you recommend for those coaches to build their client base and establish themselves?
I am the last person you should be asking that question to.
Well, I mean, it's somebody. Okay, for instance, John became a coach, right? And he's a good coach, and he's looking to expand his business. I mean, coaching business, right? By finding more clients, and he really struggles in finding more clients, or even getting one client would be good enough for him. But, since he has not gotten any kind of client to work with, he's very disappointed. And he's looking for ways to connect so that, at least he should have one or two clients that he can work on. And then he can, scale his business in a level that he wants to go to. So what recommendation you have for John?
So I suppose I would think of it in terms of the coach's kind of overall business strategy. Like, who are they as a coach? What kind of coaching do they do? Do they do leadership coaching? Do they do life coaching? Do they do team coaching? Do they do kind of mindset coaching? I mean, there's a whole range of kind of areas of practice that people focus on. So getting clear on what you're good at, what you have to offer the world, I think is kind of the first thing for any coach. Who are you? I mean, a lot of business development coaches kind of do this whole thing about developing a client avatar. Who is your ideal client? What are their problems? How can you actually help them solve their problems? And this personally for me is one of my, I can tell you what I do and I can tell you how I do it, but I can't make any promises to you as a coach, because in the end, as a coachee, you're the one that's going to be doing all the work and you're the one that's going to be responsible for kind of your success. And I can serve as a listening board. I can serve to question you, to challenge you, to work with you, to hear you out. But ultimately, you're the one doing the work. So, but I think clarity about who you are, the kinds of people that you work best with, and what you have to, clarity about what you have to offer, and to whom, I think is really helpful, and just
go with the flow, I guess.
And in attention to your own, your own personal and professional development,
right?
Being aware of, what you do well and what you don't do so well as a coach, and, where do you need to improve and where do you need to say, yeah, that's not my area. I'm not going to do that.
Time is coming to an end, and I would like to give you an opportunity to express yourself that maybe you're not able to express entirely in the past. So if you have anything to add to our conversation, please feel free to do so.
So, I mean, I would say for me, for coach and coachee alike, whether you're kind of awareness of yourself and awareness of the system in which you're operating are kind of key to everything. It's certainly key to how I operate as a coach and think about my work with clients.
Got it. With that thought, thank you very much, Dr. Tracy, for coming to the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Prabhan.
That was Dr. Tracy I was talking to. If you'd like to get in touch with Dr. Tracy, you can send an email to her at Dr. Tracy wallach@gmail.com. She can come to your organization or she can work with you via Zoom. We'll be bringing out coaching related topics in coming episodes from the Insight Ignite Coaching. If you find this content helpful, share with your friends and colleagues, and follow our show in Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and in our own webpage at www.insightIgniteCoaching.com. Please continue to leave your candid feedback. That's the only way we can grow and serve our coaching community. Thank you for listening.